おはようございます。ということで、TheHighClassのセッシュが始まりました。はい、おはようございます。東アジアにある島国の時間帯では、現在、早朝4時頃だと思います。だいぶ過激な時間に、セッシュを開始させていただきますが、まあね、皆さんアーカイブを見るということでいいんじゃないでしょうか。ライブで本当に、見てる人が数人いるんですが、正直驚きを隠せません。はい。ということでですね、セッシュ、様々なゲストの方をお呼びして、大麻に関して話したり、するのがこのセッシュという番組なんですが、本日はですね、カナダからめちゃくちゃスペシャルなゲストをお呼びしております。名前はですね、ダナ・ラーセンさんという方なんですが、この方はですね、カナダでもうめちゃくちゃ有名な活動家の人ということですね。簡単に自己紹介をすると、彼はですね、今チャリティーでやってるサイエンスラボっていうのがあったり、そのサイエンスラボの名前が Get Your Drugs Tested っていう名前だったり、あとはメディカルのですね、マッシュルームディスペンサリーを持ってたりします。で、もちろん、カナビスのね、ディスペンサリーもあって、著者でもあるんですよ。ポッドヘッドブックスっていうコミックなんですよね。はい。コミックの著者でもあると。で、さらに一番すごいのが、多分、一番最近の出来事なんですけど、これは。2021年に、コカリーフカフェっていうのをですね、解説していたりするわけですね。今からちょっとですね、ダナさん、ラーセンさんをね、お呼びさせていただくので、ちょっと英語に切り替えるんですけども、英語わかんないよっていう方は、ぜひ、アーカイブで字幕付きのやつを見ていただければなと思ってたりもします。ということで、Hello, Mr. Larsen. Are you ready for joining right now? Is that okay? I think he's smiling. So, ということで、ラーセンさんをお呼びさせていただきます。Hi, Mr. Larsen.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Hello. I mean, thank you for coming here, for this streaming. I still cannot believe you are here and I'm talking with you right now. So I just, So I just introduced your stuff, a lot of stuff you have doing to in Japanese, but I'm honestly I don't know where to begin because you have so many things. I just mention your lab, get your drugs tested, and medical mushroom dispensary and medical cannabis dispensary and the pothead books and lastly coca leaf cafe.
There's a lot going on. We have a lot of projects.
Yes, a lot of going on. Yeah, a lot of projects. I mean, I'm not sure where to begin, but first of all, probably people are wondering what's coca leaf cafe because cocaine. I mean, not cocaine, but coca leaf. We cannot have it in Japan. I mean, also magic mushroom. It's a prohibited. So I mean, a lot of things you get involving is prohibited by us. I mean, in our country. So I don't know what.
They're prohibited in Canada too. They are against the law in Canada also, but they don't enforce the law very strictly here. And so there's a lot more room for somebody to do civil disobedience like I do, especially in my city of Vancouver. It's not the same all across Canada, but Vancouver has our own city police. And over the years, they've become more tolerant to some of these things. So I'm the only place that sells coca leaf and coca leaf tea in the northern hemisphere. As far as I know, there's nowhere else in the northern half of the world that makes this available. And like you said, coca is the leaf you make cocaine out of. But long before anybody knew what cocaine was, people have been chewing coca leaf and making coca leaf tea for thousands of years. And so it's like comparing drinking a cup of coffee to snorting or injecting caffeine. It's going to be a different experience, but it's still drinking coca tea is stimulating and it wakes you up and gives you some energy, but it's not the same as snorting pure cocaine would be. And so I bring up coca products. I sneak them into Canada from Peru and Bolivia. Sometimes I lose things, but the Vancouver police, if I was selling cocaine out of my shop, I think I would get arrested. But
Yeah.
I don't think the police, the customs agents, if they catch me with some coca tea or something, or they get it in the mail, they will
Mhm.
take it away. But
Mhm.
nobody's coming into my store to arrest me for selling
Mhm.
coca tea. And we
Ah,
also have live coca plants for sale too. You can grow your own
oh.
coca at home, and so I've learned a lot about coca leaf. And to me, all
Uh-huh.
of these things have in common that these are special plants that
Uh-huh.
have a lot of good cultural and social and even
Uh-huh.
spiritual uses. And
Uh-huh.
so my mission is to teach people about these plants. And marijuana is one, magic mushrooms is one, and coca leaf is also a very good plant when used the way
Uh-huh.
nature intended.
Uh, I see. So this is just my perspective, but I mean, you are doing it like advocating it for like things like plant-based, like
Yeah,
mostly.
I think the whole war on drugs is bad, and people should be able to put into their bodies really anything they want to. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that if we lived in a world where coca and cocaine had never been prohibited, then
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people would drink coca tea and maybe chew coca leaf or coca gum. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that snorting cocaine in that world would be
Mm-hmm.
about as common as snorting caffeine is in our world. And if we had banned coffee a long time ago and
Mm-hmm.
allowed coca,
Mm-hmm.
then Starbucks would be selling coca tea, and on the street people would be snorting and injecting caffeine. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think it's more about culture than it is about the particular substance. And that I think if you want to have cocaine, you should be allowed. But I think that the vast majority of people would
Mm-hmm.
prefer to drink coca tea and chew coca leaf because
Mm-hmm.
people, when it's legal, they tend towards the safer and milder options. And when it's
Right.
prohibited, that
Oh, ちょっとの間、カットアウトしちゃいましたね。はい。ということで、戻ってくるまで日本語でお話ししようと思うんですが、どうしようかな。まあね、ライブなんで、こういうことは多々ありますと。そしてね、お互い海外に住んでるということで、なかなかですね、いい回線状況で。Oh, sorry, Mr. Larsen. You cut it out like just a little bit
okay.
out. So, we're talking about coca leaves, right? And chewing
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
drinking. This is a cup of coca tea here that I'm drinking right now. I
Oh,
put
you're
some
drinking
sparkling
right now?
water in it. This is coca tea. I'm having this right now to
Oh,
wake me
there
up.
we go. Awesome. Is it tasty? I mean, I cannot imagine like what are you guys selling it in a coca leaf cafe? It's like a tea cafe, like with
Yeah,
coca
we
leaf.
yeah. We do sandwiches and baked goods and things too, but our main thing is coca tea. We brew it in the morning and we sell coca drinks to people. We do hot and cold and we
Uh-huh.
do it. I tried to make it like in South America, they just drink coca tea very plain, right? But I wanted to make it a little more like Starbucks. So we do what I call a cocachino, and that's
Uh,
strong coca
Cappuccino.
tea with steamed milk and syrup. Or you can have a sparkling coca soda, and that's
Yes.
cold coca tea with Perrier and some flavoring. And so, we've tried to make it fancy like that, right? But
Right.
basically, it's just coca tea. You can drink it straight. In,
I
in,
see.
in countries like Peru and Bolivia, they just have a little bag. They'll drink it like you drink other tea with a little bag. Maybe in Japan, they're a little more fancy with their tea,
Yeah.
but they have a
Yeah.
little bag in hot water and they just do it like that. But I make it a little more special at our place to appeal to the Canadian audience a little more.
So that's very interesting. So like, is anybody that can anybody get into the cafe if like like let's say I'm a Japanese guy, so if I go
Yeah,
to like Vancouver and to your cafe, can I get the coca leaf tea too?
yeah, it's adults only. So if you're underage, you need to have a parent or an adult with you. I don't want some mom coming in and complaining that I sold some coca tea to her child. But other than that, yeah, any adult. And we do get some tourists. There's been less tourism the last year for obvious reasons, but I'm hoping that the coming year we get more tourists coming back. And there's
Mhm.
definitely and the Coca Leaf Cafe and Mushroom Dispensary, it's all in the same place. So one half of our space we do drinks and coffees and teas and things. Then the other half, we sell mushrooms and we sell other herbs and plants and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of two in one at our location.
I see. Okay, so like since we have like this web media about the cannabis stuff, we want to talk about cannabis right now. I'm so sorry. I'm just like, super fascinated. Like you have like a coca leaf cafe. But yeah, let's get back to the cannabis stuff. All right, we have like a question from this guy. What's the important factor of like legalizing cannabis in Canada? What was the most important things?
Well, I think to make it legal, I think it was civil disobedience and people breaking the law openly that really changed things. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and there was some political lobbying and other things. But I in Canada, we had hundreds of shops openly selling marijuana before it was legalized, and we got there because it was because of it took about 20 years or so, right? So in the early 1990s, we had some court cases that said, yes, medicinal marijuana is a thing that people need, and people should be allowed to have marijuana for medicinal purposes. Sick people with cancer and other problems convinced judges they had a right, but there was no place to buy it. And so if you opened up a store and you were selling to medical people, sometimes you would get arrested, but judges weren't willing to put people into jail in Canada for selling medicinal marijuana. So the risk involved was not, there was some risk, but it wasn't like you're going to go to jail for 20 years. It depended on the city and on the local police, but we started seeing more and more of these places opening, and they couldn't stop them. And so we had probably 300 or 400 shops across Canada selling marijuana. And then once you got an opening for medicinal marijuana, it's very difficult for someone to be like, well, you sold to someone whose doctor's note wasn't as valid as someone else's, or it just becomes that you can sell marijuana to everybody. But I think that kind of openly breaking the law, which is definitely harder in some countries than other countries, right? Some countries are a lot more severe. We were talking before the show about a guy on death row in Malaysia for doing what I was doing, basically selling medical marijuana. That is a very brave person doing civil disobedience in a very difficult place, right? In Canada, there's risks, but not as much. But I think that kind of tactic, it's the most risky, but it's also the most successful. And if you can get a mass movement of people defying the law, that can really lead to some serious changes happening.
Right. So now we know, like, like a situation like Canada and us, like Japan, like a totally different. I don't think like a lot of people like legally, willingly to like break the law about the cannabis.
Well, yeah, it's a challenge. Yeah, it's a risk, definitely.
Definitely a challenge, and we're still like haven't reached to the level like a lot of people know what the cannabis is like in Japan. That maybe that makes us like difficult to like legalize cannabis yet, I guess.
I think that teaching people about the medicinal benefits. When you say marijuana, a lot of people are like, marijuana is bad. Medicinal marijuana, oh well, that's okay, And when you see somebody who is sick, or who is a veteran, or who is somebody who's a child with epilepsy, or someone who's very sympathetic, and that person needs it, that really softens people's attitudes, and that can be the opening. Well, if that child with epilepsy needs it, then maybe an adult who's got less severe problems also can benefit. And then you start to see, well, maybe everyone can benefit, and maybe this medicine, maybe you don't have to be very sick for this to have some benefits. And I think that change in perception, the medicinal marijuana idea, is very influential.
See, so like start from like medicinal stuff, I guess, definitely.
Yeah, teaching people about the medicinal, that's usually a good opening.
Yeah, exactly. With a visual, I guess. I mean, that's pretty effective, I guess.
Yeah.
That is interesting. That is interesting. So there's one more question. I have read, like a Wikipedia about you. I'm sorry, this is like a only kind of source I can get the information about you. But you did some campaign. It's called Overgrow Canada campaign. Do you remember what you did?
Oh yeah, that was wonderful. We did that for 3 years. I did that in 2016. This was before marijuana was legal in Canada, but everyone was talking about legalization. We knew it was coming. And so I had access to a very large quantity of marijuana seeds.
Yes.
It's a strain that's low in THC and high in CBD. And I launched a campaign called Overgrow Canada, and I went on a tour to 20 cities across Canada, giving away marijuana seeds to people If you asked for seeds in the mail, we would send you seeds for free. We sent out thousands and thousands of envelopes with 100 seeds each. And it's one of the only times I've been arrested for marijuana activism in Canada.
Really?
In one of
That's a reason.
I got arrested in the city of Calgary. It's a little more conservative city than Vancouver is.
I see.
And I was giving away seeds, and the police came and they arrested one of our volunteers for having seeds. And I didn't want someone else to be arrested at my event. So I sort of made the police arrest me. I gave away seeds in front of the police. And I said, look, I've got seeds. If you're going to arrest that guy, you've got to arrest me too. And that actually worked out very well. They held me overnight in jail, but it created a lot of attention. Everybody was like, you put this guy in jail for marijuana seeds? And at that time in Canada, there was stores, including stores in that city, that were selling marijuana seeds that nobody had bothered. So it was in a gray area where it was illegal, but nobody really cared. And so I was able, because of that arrest, I ended up giving away twice as many seeds as I had planned because everybody heard about me. It got me a lot of attention. I was going to give away 1 million seeds, and I was able to give away 2 million seeds. And it was on the second stop of my 20-city tour. So every city had a big turnout because everybody had heard about what I was doing. And so sometimes being arrested can really help because it gets you a lot of attention. It makes a controversy. Now, if I'd been in jail for years because of that, then that wouldn't have been good. But it was just one night in jail.
Yeah.
And I didn't, in the end, I did have a small trial, but the judge just kind of threw it all out for other reasons, technical reasons. I didn't actually have any legal problems in the end. And so it wasn't, it was interesting, but I spent the night in jail. I did it again the next year. I went back to that same city again, and people were worried I was going to be arrested again, but the police showed up. But the crowd that time was they said, if they try to arrest Dana, we're going to lock arms around him and make a circle, and the police are going to have to arrest everybody. And they were willing to resist, and the police ended up leaving. They didn't want to have this big fight with all the reporters and everybody there. So a year later, I was able to give away my seeds openly, and we won against the police. And in the end, I gave away 10 million seeds over the whole campaign. We don't do it anymore, but over that time, we gave away over 10 million seeds. And there was cannabis showing up in Canada in traffic circles and in parks. People were growing clones and putting them out in public. And the idea was that I think seeing a marijuana plant growing in someone's garden should not be a big deal. It should be the same as you walk by and you see someone has a very nice rose bush or whatever other plant. And now if you see a marijuana plant growing openly, you'd be like, oh my God, that's a marijuana plant. How did that get there? What happened? Oh my, the police are going to come. Oh my goodness, it's crazy, right? Who has plants in the open? But really, seeing a marijuana plant should just be, oh, there's another one I saw today. I have a few in my own garden. It's not a big deal, right? So that was the idea behind that campaign. And it was a lot of fun to give away 10 million seeds.
Yeah, man, just to hear that from you, that's a really, really amazing. And, I just read the article, I just read the Wikipedia, but now I know more than that. Wow. So that was
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's like a big picture. You did it. All right, that's pretty interesting. So you definitely think giving away the seeds, that pushes that legalization in Canada too?
Yeah. It's a way. You want to keep it in the conversation. You want people to be talking about it. You want people to be thinking about it. And so doing this kind of civil disobedience or these kind of stunts, giving away things or opening a shop or doing a campaign, I think it helps to get people talking and keep the issue at the forefront. And, the world, marijuana is a huge story. America's states are changing. People are talking about it everywhere. And in Japan, you need to be talking about it too and having people discussing it and having those. It's about 1 million conversations and people talking to their parents. A lot of it's generational, and it's older people who don't understand or who've never seen marijuana. All they know is that it makes you crazy and that it's a dangerous, addictive drug and whatever they've been told. And they need younger people who have got more experience with that to be having that conversation. And it's not always an easy conversation, but when you're in the news a lot, it makes it easier to talk about this stuff and to say, well, maybe people should have marijuana seeds. What's the big deal? And, I think that's important.
Right. Okay, I got one more question from myself. You were, I don't know if you're still belonging to like a political party. You were in that political party, right?
Yes,
And
I was, yeah.
well, I think like if I want to change the law about Japan, like about this cannabis stuff, I have to, I mean, they have to have something like someone to get in the political party or something like that, right? I mean, is that like a
That's
difficult
true.
to, yeah, right, get in or like have like a relation with like a political side? How
It's
would you
been
do that?
it was very challenging. Canada, we have three big parties in Canada. There's more political parties, but there's three big ones: one on the
Uh-huh,
right, one in the middle, and one on the left. And I
uh-huh,
joined the one. I actually helped create a small party in Canada
hmm,
called the Marijuana Party, and that was like in 2000 and
uh-huh,
2001. We did a federal marijuana party and a smaller political party in my province. But
uh-huh,
then one of the leader of the left wing party in Canada in 2003, he started supporting marijuana more openly and saying
hmm,
it should be legal. And so I joined that party and I worked with them. And I actually, it's been very challenging in some ways. I actually convinced them to let me run as a candidate for the party in
hmm,
2008. I was an
hmm,
official candidate in the federal election in
I
my
see.
area. I was
Uh-huh,
running in an area where our party, the left party, doesn't usually win, but I was
hmm,
able to be a candidate and represent the marijuana community. And it
hmm,
went very badly that time. The other parties made I had made videos where I'm smoking marijuana in the video. I did one video, and this was like in the 90s. I made a video where I take LSD and I
right,
film myself
right.
taking LSD and just talk about how it feels and what it's like. And the
Hmm,
other parties took my videos and put them on the news and said,
hmm,
"Look at this crazy person running for this party." And the
hmm,
party was like, "Oh shit, what did we get?" They made me quit my campaign, and it was national news that I
hmm.
was like this terrible stoner, and they had made such a mistake in letting me run for them. And
Mhm.
it was very embarrassing for the party. They all knew who I was, but then when it got on the news, it
Right.
made a big issue, right? So, but you're right. You're right that I don't know how it is in Japan with your political parties, but most people in Canada don't belong to a political party. They vote for which one they want, but they don't
Mhm,
belong and make the decisions. But if you become a member and you're
mhm,
on the inside, you can
mhm.
have a lot more influence in terms of getting their policies, choosing
Right.
who their leader is going to be, trying to push for this stuff. It will be very frustrating, and it's been very frustrating for me in Canada. You know,
Mhm,
I traveled around the country passing resolutions and going to conventions and making them adopt policies for legal marijuana. And then
mhm,
the leaders of the parties would just ignore what we had done. And so it
mm.
has been challenging. But ultimately, you want the law changed. You know,
Right.
I talked about civil disobedience, and that's important, but also being a part of the political system
Mhm,
is very important. But you can expect that they will try to silence you, try to push you aside. They don't want to lose the vote. They're scared, and you have to
right.
show them that. And I don't know what the numbers are in Japan, but you've got to find a way for marijuana to be an issue that gets you votes, and
Right.
that there's got to be enough people who want to vote for this, right? But I agree, being a political party is important.
Yeah.
I still am a member of this party, and they don't hate me as much as they used to after I
Mhm.
ruined the election for them in 2008. But I'm still a controversial person in my party. Some of them really like me and think I'm great, and some of
Mhm,
them think I'm making them look bad. And so
mhm.
that is a challenge.
Yeah, that's very difficult. One side you look like pretty bad, but one side, you're like a really advanced guy, I guess. Advanced, I guess.
Yeah, it depends how
Yeah.
you feel about the issue, right? And whether
Right.
you think
Right.
that it's an issue that's going to win votes. And I talk
Mhm,
about more than just marijuana. I mean, I said I do other things in drug
right.
policy, so I'm known for not just marijuana, but for kind of drug issues in general.
I see. I see. So now I kind of know. Like I've been knowing this, but we need to have like education first. As a medicinal stuff, and maybe like we can work it with like a medicinal factors. And make it. Maybe we can make some politician like Japanese guys like make it to do it. I guess maybe that's how we do it. What do you think? Is
I
that
mean,
right?
cannabis used to be a big part of Japanese culture, and I'm sure you've
Yes.
talked about that on your show and everything. And I think that
Hmm.
teaching people about the history as well, I think, is important. You know,
Mm.
they see it as a foreign thing sometimes, or something that's a different culture, and it's ruining our culture, and it's a bad
Right.
outside thing. But really, it's an integral part of Japanese culture, and many other cultures around the world have been using cannabis for, Canada is a much younger country than Japan is, obviously, but cannabis is also a big part of Canadian history too, and was a part of the reason why Canada exists as a country in the first place was the effort to grow more cannabis hemp for the British Navy to make sails and ropes. They were looking for places that Britain got all their rope and canvas from Russia, and they wanted to find other places to grow it. And that's one of the reasons they were colonizing and looking around the world was to grow more hemp.
I see. I mean, we had like the same kind of situation before. I mean, we even have like like some kind of articles, like a textbook, like from the elementary school. Like the book recommend us like to grow cannabis at this age, but people like forgot about this. Totally.
Yeah, I think learning the history is a big part of ending the prohibition.
So learning history. All right. That was very interesting. So we've been doing like this live streaming. It's like a 27 minutes right now. Can we do this like until 45?
I'm here for as long as you want me. I will be here as long as you need me. I'm open. I'm happy to talk. I love doing this.
Awesome. Thank you. So, okay, I want to ask you about the science level. Like, get your drugs tested. You are doing this like as a charity, and why did you start this? I've had it like for like Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we have. I think this is around the world, but certainly in Canada and especially in my city, there's a big problem with overdose deaths. Not from marijuana, obviously, but from injectable drugs, from heroin. Now it's really fentanyl has changed the market. I don't know. I don't want to get into that conversation too much, but people are dying from drug overdoses, or also they just have a bad experience. And so we started a group called Get Your Drugs Tested. We've been open over 2 years now, and anybody can come by and they give us a tiny little sample of any street drug. We can't test a herb like marijuana or that for that. It's got to be more like a chemical type thing, but heroin, cocaine, ecstasy, MDMA, LSD, anything like that, right? We can, or any kind of pill or vitamins or things. And so it just takes 5 or 10 minutes. We have a machine. It's about, the size of a bread box. It's about this big, but basically it shines an infrared laser onto the sample, and then it analyzes the light spectrum that comes out of that and matches that light against the database and is able to tell what's in the substance. And so we've done over 20,000 tests now. We do get some samples in the mail also, but mostly it's in person. And we are now the world's biggest lab for drug testing. And we put all of our results on our website, getyourdrugstested.com. And so it's in a searchable database. So you can go there and you can look. We have pictures of everything. You can see all the different substances. You can see what the trends are and how many are contaminated and what there is. So yeah, sometimes we're looking for things that might kill you. If there's fentanyl in your cocaine or something, that's not supposed to be there. That can be deadly. Sometimes we're just finding out that things have been cut, so it's not as pure as you thought it was, or maybe it's more pure than you thought it was. Sometimes there's other things people can cut drugs with that are harmful or not. But I think it's very important. I would rather live in a world where our service was not needed, because drug users could buy drugs that have labels on them and that explain what is in them and that have been tested in the lab where they were made. But that's a long way away. And so I think it's a very important community service. And in our area, there are so many people dying every day from drug overdoses and not knowing what's in their drugs. And so we help people make safer and better informed decisions. And also it creates accountability. So they can go, not always, but sometimes they can go back to their drug dealer and go, hey, you sold me saying this was this, but this was actually that, and it was actually dangerous. So I want better drugs from you. And a lot of times dealers don't really know what they're selling either, because they just buy something from their source and they repackage it and resell it. So they don't always know exactly what's in it or if it's contaminated or whatever. And so, there's different kinds of dealers, but there's definitely, people I think want to provide quality products. So we create accountability in the drug chain and create more knowledge. And I think it's very useful. And I wish this service was more available in other places. But yeah, I think it's very important, and I think we've stopped a lot of overdoses, and we've also just helped prevent people have bad drug experiences when they buy something and it's stronger, or it's not what they thought it was going to be, or it's cut with something dangerous. Sometimes it's about saving lives. Sometimes it's about just having a better experience. But that's our Get Your Drugs Tested program.
So that's what you guys doing. So you guys like telling like that drug is like killing you or not, or like this drug is like really strong, so like take it like a little by little or something like that. Do you?
Yeah, exactly. We give you an analysis. We will give you a little card, and it'll say what is in the substance. So, you thought this was cocaine. Well, it's half cocaine, but the other half is something else. And so now and maybe that something is risky, maybe it's not. Now you know what it is. We'll have a little conversation with the person about what the results mean, about how to use that drug safely if that's possible. Maybe we tell them maybe you shouldn't use this because it's got something bad in it or whatever. But even if it's pure and it's what they thought, we will still say, well, okay, so you've got some ecstasy. It looks like it's clean, but here's some ways to use that responsibly to make sure that you don't hurt yourself, don't hurt anyone else, have a positive experience. Try to give them some guidance, and to me, it's about responsible drug use, and that can be anything. You can drink alcohol responsibly or irresponsibly, and you can use cocaine responsibly or irresponsibly, and that to me is helping people to be responsible, to know what they're taking, and to take it in a safer way.
I'll see. Well, that sounds like seems like something like the government should do it. You don't think so? But it's pretty good. Yeah, right.
The government should do it. And there is a little bit in Canada. There is a little bit of drug testing from the government, but we do the vast majority of all the tests we do. When the government offers it, they offer it. Oh, we're there on Wednesday from noon until 3, and then if you drop it off, we'll give you an answer 2 days later. And so that's better than nothing. But most people want the answer in 5 minutes. They don't want to wait 2 days. And we're open 7 days a week for 8 hours a day. So we're very accessible. If you just open a little bit here and there, people aren't going to come, right? And so they do offer it. We're not the only one, but yeah, it's ridiculous and we fund this with marijuana sales. So we have a marijuana dispensary that's not legal. It's not licensed, but we're still able to stay open somehow. And we use our profits from that to provide the drug testing service. So to us, it's all sort of connected, all these things.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, so since we are talking about this overdose thing, and maybe I want to know like how Canada is like right now after legalization, because we have like this conversation. Once we legalize cannabis in Japan, I don't know how to say this, but that's gonna be dangerous, for like people. What if?
Oh yeah, all the fears and the propaganda, none of that happened.
Right.
People said, "Oh, everyone's going to be driving stoned, and there's going to be car accidents everywhere, and all the kids are going to start smoking marijuana, and children are going to be smoking joints in kindergarten, and everybody's going to be high all the time." And none of that happened. There's been no. They gave the police a whole bunch of extra money before legalization to help them like deal with all these problems, and even the police who were against legalization now say, oh, it's been fine. Nothing really happened. Nothing's different than it was before, except we're not arresting marijuana users anymore. There used to be 60,000 people getting arrested every year for marijuana possession in Canada, and now that number is very close to 0. You can still be arrested for marijuana in certain situations, right? If you, depending on how it goes, but none of those things happen, and there's been no big increase in marijuana use. Because marijuana use is more about the culture than it is about the law, really. And so there hasn't been a big jump. There certainly hasn't been any increase in crime or anything like that. So I think it's gone well in that regard. I think the problem some people have is that there's still a lot of taxes. It's still very expensive. It's probably more expensive sometimes to buy the legal marijuana than it is to buy the street marijuana. So because of that, there's still a persisting black market in cannabis. Most people, there's still a lot of, I'm not sure most, but there's still a lot of marijuana being sold illegally as well as the legal. but every year the amount of legal marijuana goes up. And the reason for that has been that they put in rules that were too strict. Even though marijuana is legal in Canada, there's still many cities that have no marijuana shops because that city decided we don't want it in our city and no one's making them have it. So there's still many cities that there's no legal shop to go to. And it's growing slowly and there's more and more, but there's still a lot of hostility in some areas to marijuana. And so there's still a lot of issues around that. But there's been no big problems, and it's saving us money in our policing. It's helping to make safer communities, and it's getting marijuana out of the alleys. What also we've seen is the overall price has dropped quite a bit. So a lot of the people that were growing marijuana illegally, they stopped doing it because the money isn't there anymore, or they went and became legitimate, and now they're growing legal marijuana. Maybe not as making as much money per plant, but they're able to do a bigger operation and do more legal kind of stuff. So it's been an interesting transition, and it's only been a couple of years. It's going to take a lot more years, I think, to really, just like when we banned alcohol in Canada, when alcohol prohibition ended, it wasn't. It was still very restricted and very controlled. It took a lot of years to get to a more open system, and so I still think we have a lot of changes to come in Canada, but we're one of the only places in the world where there's legal marijuana shops where any adult can walk in and walk out with a bag of weed or a joint or some edibles. And I think that's wonderful and something that I hope spreads around the world.
Right. So like what we're thinking is like a kind of delusion. Not what we're thinking, but what the government telling us is a kind of delusion, I guess.
There's a fear that the law is not stopping people really from using marijuana, and ultimately, even if more people did use marijuana, that's okay because marijuana is not harmful or bad. And what you do often see is that when cannabis use goes up, alcohol use goes down because people make a choice. And I know a lot of people who were alcoholics and who drank too much and had problems with their job and their family and their health. And they found that if they used marijuana instead, they didn't need alcohol so much, or they quit alcohol altogether. And that, to me, is a responsible, positive choice. No matter how you feel about marijuana users, they don't hurt their families like alcohol users can. It's not the same health problems around alcohol. And a lot of the people who were against marijuana drink a lot of alcohol. And they're there with their drink in their hands saying, those darn cannabis users and potheads, glug, 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 glug. How dare they do that? And that to me is bad because I don't think alcohol should be against the law, but alcohol is definitely causes worse behavior. People who drink alcohol, they have fights. I think it can lead to sexual assaults. It leads to a lot of irresponsible behavior. Marijuana leads to going to the fridge and having a snack. Marijuana leads to giggling and being silly and going to bed early. And so it's not, the user is not in the same situation, right? And so that I think, and we've seen that in Canada and in the U.S. It's not a huge change, but there's been a trend towards cannabis replacing alcohol. And I think that is a good thing for the culture and very positive.
So people in Canada like are replacing from switching from alcohol to cannabis right now.
Yeah, I think so. And other drugs too, like heroin also, people that are using opiates can find that for them, smoking a joint, maybe not so much, but eating a very strong cannabis edible can often help people who are heroin addicts to reduce their heroin use or even eliminate it. And part of that is sometimes people use opiates for pain relief to help them sleep. And said smoking a joint is usually not strong enough, but a very strong edible, one that would probably be too strong for you and I, but for someone who's taking very strong drugs, that high doses of cannabis can often help them to reduce their heroin use. And so Cannabis Substitution, there's actually a group in Vancouver that gives away a free cannabis to people that are heroin addicts in the poorest part of our city to help give them the option because sometimes cannabis can cost more than heroin can, and that doesn't make any sense. Cannabis is a safer choice. It should be cheaper and more affordable than the more dangerous choices, but we're not there yet. So, but that I think is also a part of it. Cannabis is so much safer than so many other drugs.
I see. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that. All right, we have like a really, really good conversation, I guess. And thanks for like like educating us.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Yeah, it was. It was. Okay, this is like a. Okay, let's talk about right now. I have like a few minutes, and I want to know about the medical mushroom dispensary. Why do
Yeah.
you? Why did you start this? I mean,
Well, I think that psychedelics
uh-huh.
and psilocybin magic mushrooms are
Yeah,
really
yeah.
going to be the future now, and that
Wait,
as
first of all, is
Canada,
it like a legal now?
not in Canada, no, it's like marijuana was with when we had a
Okay.
lot of shops selling
Uh-huh.
marijuana before it was legal. We're seeing
Uh-huh.
the same thing. So we've had a few court cases in Canada
Uh-huh.
where people are convincing a judge that they need
Uh-huh.
magic mushrooms for medicinal benefit, for
Oh, okay.
depression,
I see.
anxiety,
Right, right,
of
right.
trauma from being in war or those kind of things. And
Uh-huh.
but there's no legal source. And so when someone like me opens a shop, I'm
Mm-hmm.
providing a legal access to people that the judge has said they have a right to get it, but there's
Uh-huh.
nowhere to get it. And
Uh,
so it's very similar to now where mushrooms are in Canada to where
mhm.
marijuana was in like 1997, where it was
Mhm.
just starting. The idea of medicinal marijuana, now it's
Mhm.
medicinal mushrooms, and the idea that these things can be very helpful for
Mhm.
people's psychology. And there's something called microdosing, where you
Uh-huh.
just take a very small amount. So normally with mushrooms, people will take 1 or 2 grams of dried
Okay.
mushrooms, and that will be enough for a psychedelic
Uh-huh.
breakthrough kind of experience. But now
Mhm.
it's becoming common. You just take 1/10 of a gram. And
Mhm.
you barely feel it. It's just a
Mhm.
little bit. They call it a microdose. And this,
Macros.
instead of having a trip, maybe
Mhm.
you just feel a little more relaxed. You don't feel so
I
depressed
see.
or anxious. You don't feel so traumatized. And it can be a substitution for antidepressants for many people. And you don't take it every day. You just take it once, or you take it about 2 times a week, and
Mhm.
it has a nice effect. But it's very, it's to me it's similar. I'm sure your audience knows about CBD and how it's
Right.
different from THC, and I
Mhm.
think that microdosing is kind of like CBD in that you
Mhm.
get some of the medicinal benefits, but you're not really getting very high off of it. And we sell a lot of microdoses, and we also sell a lot of mushrooms and mushroom chocolates and higher dosages too. But for a lot of people who don't want to get high, they're not looking for a psychedelic journey, but they
Mhm.
want to relieve their anxiety, they want to feel less depressed. That
Mhm.
I think can be really beneficial, and it's very low dosage. It's very safe, just
Mhm.
like with marijuana. Even
Mm.
huge doses of mushrooms are not toxic and they won't kill you or harm you. It can be quite intense
Mhm.
psychologically, but
I
it's
see.
not going to kill you, right? You can't die from
Right.
it. But
Mhm.
really, you want to keep these dosages low. And we're also seeing more of these places growing in Canada where they make
Mhm.
a space where you can come and there'll be like a therapist there, and you can take your mushrooms or maybe some other similar kind of substance and have that experience in a safe environment where
Mhm.
someone is there in case you feel anxious or you need someone to talk to. They're there. But I think psychedelic therapy, especially with magic mushrooms, is going to
Mhm.
be a huge thing also. And there's so many people that take antidepressants, and
Mhm.
antidepressants they can be helpful, but they're not really a long-term solution. And
I
I
see.
think that mushrooms are really can be a solution and help people not just to
Mm.
push away their pain and anxiety, but to heal and to go
Uh-huh.
through it. And usually with the mushrooms, you don't need to keep taking them for years and years. After a certain point, you find you've got the benefit and you're mostly done with that. So we're doing civil disobedience and we're seeing more mushroom dispensaries opening. We're one of the
Mhm.
very first ones,
Mhm.
but I expect in a few years there's going to be 200 of these things all across Canada. So just like with
Mhm.
marijuana, it's happening with mushrooms too.
Ah, I see. It's interesting. Now I have like this question. Okay, when let's say like the Canada legalized mushroom and cannabis like fully, like anybody can consume it if they are adult. Which one is gonna be like more popular? What do you think? Which one do you prefer?
Well, I think marijuana is probably more popular because
Okay,
people who enjoy marijuana might use it more often. You might smoke it every day or
I
once
see.
a week or something. People who take mushrooms, microdosing, they might take twice a week. But if you're taking a bigger dose of mushrooms, you don't usually. Even a
Mhm.
heavy mushroom user is not like having a psychedelic trip every day, right? That's a lot. So I think that cannabis probably will be more popular. But I think that microdosing will become a very big thing. And
Mhm.
I think like CBD is reaching people
Right.
who said don't really want to get high, don't like
Uh-huh.
smoking joints or whatever, but they like CBD. And I think these very small dosages of mushrooms are going to be very popular too. I think
Mhm.
in that sense, there's going to be millions of people in Canada. I think within 10 years, we're going to have millions of people in Canada who are
Mhm.
taking mushrooms in microdoses who never thought they would be before.
Mhm.
And in some ways, it's going to be easier to legalize mushrooms because with marijuana, one of the big issues is the smoke. And people say, I don't like the smell, and you're smoking in an area, and where can you smoke? And smoking is a
Uh-huh.
big controversial thing. But with mushrooms, there's no smoke. And I think
Uh-huh.
that part of it is just less controversial. So
Right.
I think the mushrooms are going to be more widely used, maybe in some ways, but I think more
Mhm.
marijuana. We're going to go through more cannabis. So
I
hopefully
see.
both of them become very common and become
Uh-huh.
very accepted. That I think will be very good for our society.
I see. All right. Thank you for answering that. Okay, I kind of want to extend like a little bit of time, and I want to talk about this guy. I think I have heard of it. Like Japanese guy in Mexico, and he's in jail.
So yeah, it's a long story on my end, but basically, 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, I got caught in Mexico City with some
Mhm.
coca leaves coming
Mhm.
across the border, and I ended up
Mhm.
spending 2 nights in jail and
Mhm.
came very close to like being there for a very long time. They
Oh,
tested my leaves and they said we couldn't find any cocaine in these leaves, and so they let me go.
I
But
see.
while I was there in that jail, coming in, I met a guy named Akira who was a
Akira.
Japanese fellow who had been
Uh-huh.
trying to bring some marijuana home from Mexico. I think
Not the
he had put it
smartest
into.
decision though.
He was not a very good smuggler. He had put it into tin cans labeled as potpourri and had
Man.
sealed the cans. And
Okay.
so he's still in jail in Mexico now. It's been almost 2 years. He hasn't
Mhm.
had trial yet. So we talked a little bit. He doesn't speak English very well. Doesn't speak
Mhm.
Spanish very well. And I felt very sad for this fellow who was in a very difficult place over
Right.
marijuana. And because I felt I could have been there, I wanted to help him. So I sent him a Spanish Japanese dictionary to help
Mhm.
him speak to people
Oh,
and communicate. I ordered some novels off of
thank you.
Amazon Japan for him. So we
Uh-huh.
had some books to read in Japanese, and I had the lawyer that I met there. I tried to have him go down. At the
Mhm.
time, because of COVID, the lawyer couldn't bring a translator with him. He had to only go by himself. So
I
we had a
see.
very hard time communicating with Akira. But
Mhm.
I didn't realize that there was like a big Japanese community in Mexico, and that
Mhm.
there was people there that maybe could come and talk to him. And so, he's still there. I just got a letter from his friend in Japan
Uh-huh.
with some information about him and asking if I could help. I'm
Mhm.
not sure what I can do for him, but if we could get him a better lawyer. He's been
Mhm.
down there a long time now, and like before trial in a
Mhm.
very difficult situation. And so hopefully he can get out with time served or something and get his
Right.
sentence, plead guilty or something and get it over with. I'm sure he
Mhm.
just wants to go home. When I was there, the Canadian embassy was very helpful and
Mhm.
stayed in touch with me. He told me the Japanese embassy just told him to get lost and it was marijuana and they don't care because they're against cannabis.
Mhm.
So
Right.
yeah, if there's people who watch your show who are in Mexico who are Japanese and they want to come visit him or something, maybe I can give you his information and we can find a
Oh,
way to do that. I'm sure he would love to talk to somebody who speaks Japanese and
right.
is from his culture, right? And I'm trying to do my best to see if I can
Mhm.
get my lawyer to help him out
I see.
and make it easier for him. But
Mhm.
I felt sorry for him. But in a way, it kind of led to us talking here, because I started learning more about the Japanese activism and the
Mhm.
cannabis people fighting for legalization in Japan.
Mhm.
And this guy needs some help there. He should not be there for 2 years now
Right.
over 2 ounces of marijuana. I have 2 ounces of marijuana like
Uh-huh.
on me at all times, and so I always think this is weird that people are going to jail for this and being punished for this when it's really, something that for me is just so common.
Right. Okay, I will get him info like from you after this, and maybe if I have a chance, maybe I can visit him and cheer him
Yeah,
up.
I'm sure he would like that very much, and if I could help make that happen, I would love to do that.
Cool. Thank you. All right, now it's like a 50 minutes past, and we're gonna probably close this session. Hey, I mean, it sounds like kind of greedy. If you know anyone that I can talk like about this, can you like introduce someone like someday?
Absolutely, I'd love to I've got some contacts not only here but
Awesome.
all around the world. I would love to put you in touch with some people. And by the way, I've been smoking marijuana the whole show, right? So the people who say that marijuana makes you stupid or makes you crazy or whatever, I mean, I guess your audience can decide if I'm, how I'm behaving. But for me,
Exactly.
smoking a joint, it's very common and it doesn't interfere with my ability to speak articulately and to talk about politics or anything else in any way, right? So
Right. It's a really good one. It's a really good picture we got. And you are like drinking coca leaf tea too.
Coca leaf tea, and I got my joint, and that's how I usually start my day
Man,
here.
you're pretty wired if you're in Japan.
Yeah, I know, but we're making changes.
Right. Well, it was like a really, 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 really nice time I'm having with you, and thank you for like helping us, to get educated, to get education. Yes. Well, thank you, Mr. Larsen. Donald
It's been a
Larsen.
lot of
Thank
fun.
you. I
Thanks
don't
for
know. I
having me.
cannot. Yeah. Thank you. See you soon, and I will contact you about the guy like in jail.
Sounds
Thanks.
good.
Awesome. Thank you. はい。ということで、どういうふうにね、終わらせればいいか全く分かんなかったので、ちょっとぎこちない感じになっちゃいましたが、ミスター・ラーセンさんですね。ダナ・ラーセンさんに来ていただきました。これからもですね、ザ・セッシュで、いろんなゲストの方をお迎えしたいなと思いますので、ちょっとこちらの、放送の方をどうか、サポートしていただけたらなと思います。ということで、今日はこの辺で終わります。またよろしくお願いします。あざっす。やばい、みんな、チャンネル登録と、あと、ダナ・ラーセンさんの、あれ忘れないでください。ツイッターありますからね。はい。ツイッターもありますんで、下に流れてますから、ラーセンさんのツイッターアカウントこちらですね。はい。よろしくお願いします。ということで、お疲れ様です。あざっす。